You are tuned into Apex Express, bringing you an Asian and Pacific Islander view from the Bay and around the world. I'm Tara Dorabji. In 1947, India and Pakistan won independence from Britain. While the nonviolent struggle of Gandhi is often revered and the story of Indian independence retold, the British partitioning of India and Pakistan rests in the shadows. The 1947 partitioning of India marks the largest land migration in human history. About 10 million people were forced to migrate. An estimated 1 million people died from the rioting and fighting. On April 6, the 1947 Partition Archive is sponsoring an event in Berkeley called Art for Partition to raise awareness about the legacy of partition. The event will include an art auction, a free screening of the movie Earth, and a talk by author Bapsi Sidhwa. We are joined on the line by Bapsi Sidhwa. She is an award-winning Pakistani author of 5 novels, including Cracking India and The Crow Eaters. She strives to bring women's issues of the Indian subcontinent into discussion. Bapsi Sidhwa, welcome to KPFA.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bapsi Sidhwa, your novel, Cracking India, is just an incredible account of the partition. And I know for me, it was really instrumental for my own understanding of the partition of India. Why did you focus your artistic work on the partition?
You know, I had only read one novel, Kushwant Singh's A Train to Pakistan, and it was such a defining moment in the history of the subcontinent. And nobody really had written about it, except for a few short stories and things like that. And I grew up hearing whispered conversations about what happened to so-and-so's sister, so-and-so's mother. And, you know, because I was a child, I wasn't told anything. But as I reached adulthood, I realized these women had been kidnapped and raped and brutalized. And I thought, their lives have to be talked about. What happened to them has to be talked about, because really nobody did talk about it. It was considered such a dishonor to the family that nobody would ever talk about it in India or Pakistan, people who had this event happen to them.
And Bapsi Sidhwa, what gave you the courage to break that silence?
It was... you know, it is a sort of a drive within me, I guess, within all writers, that wants to say something, reveal something. It is also powered by compassion, a sense of justice. You know, things like that drive one can't really analyze.
In the story Cracking India, much of it is told from the perspective of a young Parsi girl, and you yourself are Parsi. And what about being from the Parsi community do you think affects your ability to tell the story of partition?
I don't think being a Parsi really matters. It's just that I was in Lahore at the time of partition. I grew up in a sort of a very isolated world and a sort of fantasy world, and this percolated, you know, things percolated in my mind, as happens to a lot of writers. And when the time came to tell a story, I was able to tell it. I did not go to school. I had polio as a child, as this child Lenny has in Cracking India. And because of that and my isolation, there were a lot of silences in my life. And that gave, I think, vent to a sort of compulsion to share my views, to share my thoughts, to share stories, really, not my thoughts or views.
And Bapsi Sidhwa, as you've delved into the subject of partitioning, I mean, it's a horrific story. 10 million people forced to migrate, 1 million people that died. What was there a time in looking at the stories that came out that wanted to be told that was particularly difficult for you to put on the page? What was sort of the most horrific moment that you had to go into as a writer?
Oh, well, you know, I can't write the sort of grim tragedy has to be part of this novel without getting into farce and comedy, so it alternates with that. And of course, the most horrific moment for me was when I heard about tearing a man apart, two jeeps tearing a man apart, tied to his different legs. And, well, there were many, many such images, which seared into my consciousness, into my heart, so that when I was talking, when I was writing, it just came out, There were many more moments, I guess, than just that. I'd heard horrific stories.
And have you encountered resistance from the work and the way that you tell these stories?
Well, yes, little bit of resistance, that I'm too candid with sexuality goes. Why do you write so freely about sex? Or, women in the subcontinent are not supposed to do that. And me being isolated as a child, I didn't learn much, so it was a little bit of foolishness that allowed me to indulge in that sort of writing. Then there has been, of course, protests that, somebody said, don't you know we Hindus never kill? And some Muslims were offended. And, that sort of, so a lot of Sikhs were offended. That sort of thing happens. You offend everybody when you're talking about something which is the nature of our personal private Holocaust in Pakistan and India,
And Bapsi Sidhwa, I know at the center of your work is the desire to really bring women's issues forward. What do you think right now is the most untold story of women in the Asian subcontinent?
It is the story of every poverty pocket, whether it's India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. I mean, wherever there's poverty, women find themselves the brunt of all that is evil in that society. You can't begin to really differentiate between different countries of the subcontinent, but they are mired, for some parts of society, are mired in poverty, and they suffer the most.
And Bapsi Sidhwa, we're really excited to have you coming to Berkeley April 6th. And one of the things that will be part of the event that you'll be speaking at will be a screening of the movie Earth, which is actually one of my favorite movies and based on your novel, Cracking India. How was it for you to have one of your books developed into a film?
Well, as a woman, you learn a lot of humility, and when Deepa said she wanted to make my book into a film, I was delighted, and I was very, very touched that she wanted to make it. Of course, it had to take a different shape. It needed to accommodate her cinematographic vision, her, whatever her cinema vision is. And I was very happy with the result. I didn't have the pride, as I've seen many authors say, oh, this wasn't done well or that wasn't done well. I was very happy with everything in it. She did the best she could, and I appreciated that.
And it's amazing. I mean, the film itself is breathtaking, and it's thrilling that we'll be able to have a free public screening April 6th at 4 p.m. The actual free public event is from 2 to 7, and we're just delighted to have you in Berkeley, and I look forward to seeing you on April 6th.
So do I look forward to seeing you, Tara, and thank you for the interview.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on KPFA and for all the work that you do in creating stories and giving voice to untold tragedies.
Okay, my dear. Thank you.
That was the voice of author Bapsi Sidhwa. She will be speaking on April 6th in Berkeley at the Art for Partition event.